Hello and welcome to the Mix 6 podcast as part of The Mix, the UK's leading digital support service for young people all over the UK. I'm Tom Pinks, your host, and as always, whoever, wherever, whatever you are, do, live, work or love, I hope you're doing okay. And if you're not, just pop over to The Mix at themix.org or just search us on the socials, The Mix UK. From LGBTQI plus to budgeting at university, exam stress to third wheeling, whatever it is, if it's on young people's agendas, then it's on ours too. The Mix 6 podcast leaves no stone unturned when it comes to the matters at the heart of under 25s, and we do it in 6 questions. And in this episode, those 6 questions are for one of the most important voices in trans awareness today. So it seems quite fitting to be chatting with her for Trans Awareness Week 2024. A transgender activist, author, and public speaker, an all-round legend. Please welcome Miss Charlie Craggs. Hello.
Tom, that is honestly the best intro I've ever had. I'm gonna screen record that and put that on my dating profiles just so people know who the hell they're talking to. Me.
Well, I'm very happy to be a Cupid for you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Is it? Do you go by Charlotte at all?
How apparently I've never been Charlotte before, but that's gonna be my alter ego, my classy Charlotte. It's Fred.
There we go.
Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, I was saying that I've just done another podcast just before this. So I feel like my energy is really good right now. So also just that's to explain if my energy is too much, is that I've done a whole hour of talking about myself. But yeah, hopefully that was a practice run and this is the proper one.
Wow, this is what the Mix 6 is all about. It's 6 questions designed around you and what you represent, Charlie or Charlotte. And we just really want to dive into your voice and what you stand for and how that voice can resonate. And it already does resonate with so many young people out there. Before we get started, though, we warm up the audience, the listeners, with the quick fire 6. So these are 6 lightning fast questions to help the listener get to know you a little bit more. Are you ready for the quick fire 6?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Number 1, Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram, because I'm a millennial. I feel like TikTok more.
Least favourite school subject?
Maths.
How come?
Because I was the least good at it. I got all A's in my GCSEs apart from maths.
I think you've done all right, though.
I'm an influence now. What a waste. I'm also really stupid now. I've lost all of it.
I bet you did good in English, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Oh, Tom, you're so cute. And it's pink. It's like your surname.
Exactly. Thank you. Well observed. Question number 3. Best childhood food?
Oh, caramel cake. Do you remember in primary school there was a caramel cake? Did you have it in Rugby in the Midlands? It was like a shortbread base, kind of short crust pastry base, and it was like condensed. You know when condensed milk turns into caramel? They
Yes.
Caramel, and it was like that with sprinkles on. Oh my god, it was so good.
What a throwback.
It was so good. And my mum was a nursery assistant type person in the school I went to school in, and she would then sometimes get stuff to take home. They would give her and sometimes every now and then it would be caramel cake, and it was like crack. It was so good.
What a great answer. Question number 4, favourite sound?
Oh my god, that's a really good question. Like I said, I knew you were going to ask a question that I've not been asked. My favourite sound is the sound of money. The sound of notes.
Okay, making it rain.
Yeah.
Humble. Question number 5, your number 1 self-care top tip?
My number one self-care top tip is to just go MIA. I deleted WhatsApp. I feel like I'm the only person in the world who doesn't have WhatsApp, and it's so nice to not have the pressure of people watching. You know, when you have like 100 messages I need to reply to, and then like when people can see you're online and they're like, hey, why aren't you replying to this? I'm like, I have 100 other to reply to. Like, my top tip for self-care is to just delete it and just like go off the grid and move to the countryside like I did.
There we go. Are you still off the grid? Do you not use WhatsApp at all?
I haven't used it since. I deleted it about 2 years ago, and it's the best thing I ever did for my mental health. I used to find it so stressful because I'm so unorganized, and like just having like seeing the number of things I have to reply. And now because I've deleted that, I've like half the people who would message me on there don't message me anymore. So like now the only people who message me are people who have like my text number, my iMessage number. So I feel like very few people iMessage these days. So yeah, it's nice.
Amazing. I love that. I went off grid for a couple of weeks. No social media, no Instagram, offline and WhatsApp. Loved it. But I just feel like we live in a world where you just easily get drawn back into it. So to have the stamina to just say no, enough is enough, I think is remarkable.
It's the opposite of stamina. It's literally the opposite. It's like I don't have stamina, so I can't do it. Like I'm just lazy. And I didn't know. I think the funniest thing about it is I didn't even reply to any of the messages before I left. I just did it. I put up a reel about it. I probably had about like 300 messages I hadn't replied to, because to be fair, like a lot of my work would come through like brands or people or like other influencers, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like I'm not a call center. I can't reply to so many messages, so I just deleted it and didn't tell anyone. And
Wow.
I don't know, maybe I have like, maybe someone in the chat has, yeah, I feel like sometimes people still message me there and they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize you're not on there and I've been messaging you, and I'm like, I haven't been replying, have you not noticed? Like maybe people are telling me they love me in there. Maybe I've become a parent in there, who knows, honestly.
Well, you'll never know, won't you?
I'll never, and I don't want to know. I'm fine not knowing.
Sixth and final question. What's the number one top tip from your book to my trans sisters?
Oh wow, that is a really good question. My top tip, and this is for trans people because obviously the book is for trans people, but it's also just like something that can be applied to anyone, and it's about like being happy with yourself, because like I think in the foreword or the conclusion, I can't remember, I write how like when I transitioned, like the reason I didn't transition for so long is because I knew my life was going to get a lot harder, and it did, but that doesn't matter because I hated myself before I transitioned, and I don't hate myself now because I did what I had to do and I did what was right for me. And it doesn't matter if everyone else hates you if you hate yourself. In the same way, it doesn't matter if everyone loves you if you hate yourself. So that's my best bit of advice in the book, is to do what's right for you regardless of whether people love you or hate you.
Amazing. And I think that was a common theme throughout the whole book. And you just summed up really nicely right at the end, because you're the last author, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right at the very end of the book. I feel like you brought everything together at the end. And with what you've just mentioned, your mantra. And I think that's a really nice segue into our Mix 6. The first question for the Mix 6 in particular. Charlie, what makes you tick?
I'm going to be honest, I've never understood that question because I don't understand what tick means.
That's very true.
What like keep you going or something?
Yeah, what drives you? What is your guiding light? What is inside you that is just pulsating and getting you to get up and live your life the way you want it to be?
Okay, I know the answer to that. That is like, because this is obviously a podcast for young people, or like aimed at helping young people. And when I was a young person, the conversation around like queer people was very different. Like there was very little queer representation. The representation we did have, specifically of trans, well, there was no representation of trans people really, but just like being a queer young person 10, 20 years ago, because I'm 30 odd now, I'm 32 now. I was very much a victim, and I think that's what a lot of us were taught, like my age and older, sorry, is that like if you're gonna be queer, it comes part and parcel with being bullied. Like you're just gonna have to accept almost, and that's almost what I was told by the adults around me. Like, oh, you're going to have a hard life. Like, if you're going to choose this, like, it's going to be really hard. Like, if you're going to choose to be so, like, flamboyant and feminine or whatever. And it's like, no, I shouldn't. Like, what kind of world are we living in where adults are telling children that like, you should expect to be bullied? Like, maybe you should do your job better and stop the bullying. Maybe you should say something when you see me getting bullied in school. But anyway, point being, I didn't have the teachers to be a good representation and be a good kind of to look after me, I guess. So like I had to look after myself, and I didn't know how to for a long time because I was very like the opposite of I am now. Like I was very soft and shy and sensitive. And it was when I saw like Nadia on Big Brother when I was about 11, and then I think I saw Pete Burns on Big Brother, maybe I was like 13 or 12, is that finally like I had a representation in the media who was like a strong queer person or queer people who stood up for themselves and didn't take any crap from anyone. Like they were so proud of who they were in a way that like I had never seen, like, because I didn't know any other queer people in my actual real life. And then in the media, like, I mean, this was like section 23, section 28 times. So like I didn't like, which is when for anyone listening who doesn't know, it was when like LGBT stuff couldn't be like talked about in schools, not even taught, but like talked about. So like teachers couldn't reference it. So like there was just very little like representation. I didn't know anything about it. And like it was when I saw those two specifically who would stand up for themselves when they would get like essentially like homophobia or transphobia, and like they would really like put people in their place verbally, and that really resonated with me. And I started standing up for myself then, and it's like the best thing that has ever happened to me, because now in terms of the question of what makes me tick, that's why I do what I do every day. When I do go online, when I do go onto, you know, red carpets or TV shows or whatever, or photo shoots, and I make sure that I'm trying to be that for the next generation of trans and gay kids and queer kids who need to be reminded that you don't have to accept the treatment you're getting. And if you are getting treated like that, stand up for yourself, because that's the only way it's going to stop. Because the people often who are in power and put in charge to protect you, whether it's teachers, sometimes your parents, or even, to be dark, like things like the police. Like I've had really bad experiences with the police, and like you just need to realize that no one is going to protect you, and you need to learn how to protect yourself, and I'm going to teach you.
Question number 2, Charlie. You have been such a powerful voice for the trans community, and you touched on it just a minute ago. Perhaps maybe you can go into a bit more detail about what personal challenges have shaped your activism and your desire to make a change.
I was a very like, I didn't have an easy walk of life before. Like I grew up a very effeminate gay kid on a rough council estate in Ladbroke Grove and White, like the kind of between Ladbroke Grove and White City and Latimer Road. And I had a really like tough time on the estate, at school, to be honest, even sometimes in my family with like as in with my brother with and his friends with like homophobia and transphobia, whatever. And but when I transitioned, like it got even harder, which it was even like I was just crazy to like realize that it can get harder than it already was. And I remember like there was times, and it's even as recent as 2 years ago, like where like I'm like 10 years, like I said, into transition now, like, and I'm still, this is just still part of everyday life as a trans person, but like getting attacked on the tube. Like actually like a video of that went viral 2 years ago, which is why I started running self-defense classes. I run free self-defense classes for trans people now called Charlie's Angels, which you can sign up for if you want. But I realized, and it's the same 2 years ago when I was attacked on the tube as it was 10 years ago when I remember being like harassed at a bus stop, where like no one around me while the attack was happening helped me. And help can mean from intervening and stopping it escalating, like, because there's always a point where it starts and it gets worse and worse and worse. And if someone had intervened right at the start where it was just someone picking on me, it wouldn't have got to that stage. Or intervened in the stage where it's like actually like got physical and someone needs to like literally take these people off of me. Or intervened in the stage afterwards where someone could come up to me and say, are you okay? Like, can I sit with you while, you know, or do you need me to like book you an Uber, or do you need me to go to the staff here with you or call the police for you or anything like that. But like in most of the times I've ever had harassment or abuse or whatever you want to call it on public transport or in public generally, like no one has ever done that for me, and that's why I started doing what I did with Nail Transphobia and with my activism and with what I do in the media, because I was like, this is crazy that like we live in a world where people can see someone get spat on the face. Also in the peak of COVID it happened, and like not like, first of all there was like teenagers like laughing while it was happening, like before it got to that stage, but like, and then like just not saying anything, and I had people getting off the tube huffing and puffing as if like me being hate crimed is like an inconvenience to their day, like, oh come on, da da da. And it's like, oh my god, like, so like I really, the reason I started doing what I did is because I was like, we need more people to like understand how hard of a walk of life our walk of life is, and to encourage people to say something when they see something in public. And like I said, that doesn't mean necessarily fighting our fights for us, but just like checking we're okay after we've fought our fight, you know?
I actually saw that video a few weeks ago when I was preparing for this interview, and one of the first things that came to my mind, Charlie, was the mental health impact that has on somebody. And I wondered if you could share what sort of impact that had on you, and how did you manage that?
I didn't manage, to be honest. Like I remember, so I was with my friend, and I think this is a really key thing to talk about, especially like interestingly to the younger kind of listenership who, like, because often it's like older women, cis women, white women, middle class women who like think who might learn something from what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it to the young people as well, because it might, you never know, it might make them learn something. But like that, I was with my friend who is a cis woman while it was happening, and it started off as sexism. So it started off as like misogyny of this young guy or two young guys on the tube throwing. It was on a Friday night at like midnight, and they threw a can of drink at me as I was like getting off the tube, like just for no reason, like, and at us, like, because they just saw us as two girls. So I think that's a really interesting point, because with this whole massive debate in the media right now around like pitching trans women against cis women as if we're enemies, and if we've never been enemies, we never will be, but like as if like, it's like, no, like it hurts all of us. Like they saw me as a woman, and I got that, and then it's when I open my mouth, because I'm a council estate girl, so I'm not gonna have a can thrown at me. So I picked up the can and I like threw it back at them, and I missed. So then I ran after the can, picked up again. And I thought, I'm gonna keep throwing this can until I hit you. And you won't see that on the film because I hadn't started filming yet. But point being, the mental health aspect to talk about is that I, like I said, was with my friend, and after it happened, I was so numb in a way that I can't ever put into words. Like we walked home from the tube station back to my house, like where we were staying that night, and I just was like, I just needed to be left alone in silence to like, and I just remember like, I got in the shower because I felt so dirty having someone spit on my face, like I said, especially in COVID times, and just like, I just like sat in the shower for maybe like an hour and just let the rain, just the water just hit over my head, and like I felt so dirty, and then like emotionally violated as well as physically. And then like, because like I said, as well as the boy because he ended up being like I think like 14 or something ridiculous, even though he was taller than me. But like, even aside from the kind of attack itself, it was the way I was treated by the other people on the tube. So like I said, there was people huffing and puffing, people literally acting like it wasn't happening, and there was also this group of young people which is really disheartening, because they were probably the same age. They were probably like 15, 16, 14, that sort of age, and like they were enjoying it, like as these guys were like calling me a tranny and a he, she, and a she-male and disgusting and like all these things, and like throwing cans at me. They were like, you can see in the video, they were like enjoying it, like, oh, like da 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 da. And then when they spat on me, they realized it had gone too far, and they like were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it's not good enough. Like up to that point, I've been treated like a freak show, like and just been treated like worse than you would treat an animal. And that was also like sitting with me as I left, and as I was sitting in bed afterwards, I was like, and I just remember just sitting and just being completely numb. Like I couldn't even talk to my friend because I was so like, I have no words. And then that feeling, then it was almost like foreboding and like a full circle moment when at the trial in court, I was treated so disgustingly by the legal system, where like the first thing that was said to me as I walked into court, bear in mind this has been like a 3-day trial at this point, talking about transphobia and about my trans hate crime case, was, "Please sit down, sir." And I was like, "Sir," I was like, "Are you serious?" I literally looked at the judge like, "Are you serious? Like, why am I like, we're here to talk about me facing transphobia, like, and you're gonna call me sir?" Like, anyway, and then to have the judge with her ugly haircut basically tell me like that she told me off for like filming my assault, being like, "You didn't have consent from this," because he was, like I said, underage. I didn't know he was underage. He, like I said, he was taller than me, but like I filmed him without his consent attacking me, and I was like told off and then asked like leave court. And I was like, this is insane, like that I've been attacked and spat on. I filmed it for proof, and now I'm being told off, and he's getting off scot-free, and I'm being told off by this ugly haircut woman. Absolutely not. Anyway, so I left the court that day feeling exactly the same numbness, but like times 10, as I felt right after the attack. And I just remember just like sitting in the car on the way home and just like, my mental health has never been worse than that moment. Like, just to be frank, trigger warning, did not want to be here. And so like anyone listening who I guess struggles with their mental health as well, just know like that was what, like 2 years ago, and I'm still here and I'm fine. And I'm not just fine, I'm running 3 self-defense classes off the back of it for trans people that I run eventually around the country. I'm running them in London now, but do you mean I raised like 20 odd grand for that, and then I got given another 20 odd grand from a brand from Estrid, thank you Estrid, to run those. Like, I'm doing the damn thing because of that. So any young people listening who are struggling, just know like you can turn it around in the way that I've turned it around. If I can do it, you can do it. So that's a nice way to end on that very sad story.
It can be quite hard to revisit that when you're telling the story. You're going back to that place, but it's so important. It's so important to keep talking, because I know a lot of our young listeners out there, they look up to you and they might be going through something similar, and to hear it from you and to hear how such positivity came from such a dark time is just really inspiring. So thank you for that, Charlie. How do you think we can continue to push for more authentic representation of trans people in the media, but also society?
I really think it starts behind the camera often, and like there's so much emphasis on like trans representation in front of the camera, which is great because like you said, like in my intro, I've just crept into the world of acting with my little role in the Doctor Who spin-off Redacted. But I think it's more important to have it behind the camera, because then the representation you're having on camera is going to be more authentic. Because like, for example, in the Doctor Who Redacted thing that I did, it was written, my part was, and the whole script was written by Juno Dawson, who is a trans author. She's a best-selling author. She's one of the probably one of the best-selling authors in the world, to be honest. She's like a huge deal, and she wrote that script. And she the reason my character felt so authentic, I believe, is because it was written by a trans person, and she understood. She just understood the assignment basically, and like I think that's what we need. And I think any trans people, or any marginalized people listening, regardless of what identity intersection you have that is marginalized, I think the more of you we can get behind the cameras, into the boardrooms, into the production teams, the better, because then the representation we're going to have on camera of all of our communities is going to be better.
Moving on to question number 4, Charlie, and I think this follows on from everything that you just talked about. What advice do you have for young trans people or anyone struggling with their mental health while navigating their identity?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I want to take a second to think, because I think it's really important that I give a good answer for that, because I was that person. My mental health as a young person was awful. I remember being like starting counselling when I was like 15 or something in school. Like, it was so bad, my mental health, that like the school got me a counsellor. So I want to just have a think. What's my advice? I guess that's an obvious first advice, is to like say something, to tell someone. Like, it's very obvious, but like I think a lot of people just struggle, and this is adults as well, but like especially young people like struggle in silence without telling anyone, because they feel it's normal, or they feel also, and I remember this feeling as well, feeling like, oh well, what's anyone going to do about it? Like, there's nothing's going to help it. Like, this is just the way it is. It's always been this way. Nothing's going to fix this. Talking about this isn't going to fix this. And I get that. But like, it's really important that you do tell someone, be it a parent, be it a teacher, be it a friend, be it a friend's parent, anyone you can trust, because or even there's services you can call if you don't have anyone you can trust in your immediate life. Like, there's like services like
The Mix.
Yes. Okay. I was trying to think of the numbers. You know, there's ones that you like text, and it's like,
Or Shout. Yeah, you can text Shout.
I don't remember. Yeah, but and it would be good if we could put the number of that underneath this episode, maybe. But so there's things like that you can ask, because there's different methods for like helping with mental health. Like, so for me, I never really found speaking therapy very helpful, because I'm very good at speaking. I speak too much, if anything. But I think it's very helpful for people. Like, it did help, for example, my mum, who is not someone who speaks her emotions a lot or well. So for some people it really does help, but for me it didn't help. And I remember like just going through different kind of talking therapies and being like, nothing is making me feel better. And I'm sure there's other young people who feel that way, where you're just like, this isn't fixing the problem, I'm just talking about it, and it doesn't make it any better. I just talked about it now, and now I'm sad about it as well. And then they gave me CBT instead, and I found that way, 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 way more helpful. Like, so much more helpful. That's for anyone who doesn't know cognitive behavioral therapy. There's different types of that as well. There's also different types of like more practical therapy. So my point is there's different types of therapy. And so like, my best advice to any young people who are struggling with their mental health would be to speak to someone, and to speak to someone honestly. And if it's not helping you, you can try all the different types of things. There's different, like, there's medication, there's holistic things, there's I just think it's really important to talk and be honest.
100%. Absolutely. Question number 5. I'm going to say it, you have done remarkable work in shaping the history and the now in terms of trans visibility and rights. What, though, for question number 5, what does the future of trans visibility and trans rights look like for you?
The trans women back in the day were transitioning essentially by like society's rules of like, you have to become unclockable, and then you have to move and like totally blend into a new society where no one knows your history, and you got to keep it secret. And now we're in a space, we've come further, where it's like slightly more like, but I'm still doing parts of it for society, but then I think in the future, like, I think we'll get to a space where it's like, if you don't want to have surgery, you don't have to have surgery. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to do this. If you don't want to use this label, you don't have to use this label. And I think that's really good.
I love that. I think we are hopefully walking into a new era where it's not people are understanding when it's not one size fits all. It's who you want to be. It's not what society deems you to be. But but the term transgender can mean so many different things to so many people out there. So yeah, I absolutely agree. We've reached the final question.
I'm excited because this is the one from the young people, isn't it? Yeah.
It is indeed. And this is really, really beneficial for not just the trans community, but everybody. After everything that you just said, the hardship that you've been through, I think this is a really nice question to end on. And it is simply, what can CIS Allies do to better support the trans community right now?
That's a really good question. And you know what? Like, part of me is like taking a while to answer, because I want to say the right thing and like answer in the best, most helpful way. But also, like, part of me just doesn't know what to say, because if I'm honest, it just feels really pointless right now. Like, we're really living in like in a sense, like unprecedented times in terms of like transphobia on a in like kind of in a government level, in a political level, in a media kind of level as well, where like it really does feel like we've gone back. And when we've got like, I mean, even like when we've got the like, oh, it's really depressing talking about it, but yeah, like let me gather my thoughts.
I mean, I think this is an answer in itself.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
sense of like hopelessness in a way, isn't
It
it?
really does feel like, what's the point? Because I remember being asked this like years ago when I was the first time around doing like media stuff and doing podcasts around like nail transphobia, and I'd get asked questions like this, and I would say something like, oh, like if you see something, say something. We just need people to like, even like sharing something on Instagram is going to help because you're reaching outside of my echo chamber and then it's into your, and that does still help, but it just feels like such a dire time. I jumped through all the hoops 10 years ago, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Like, it's really unfair that like my mum or a cis woman can go to her GP and be put on a hormone therapy like that, saying like, I'm going through menopause, I want to be put on hormones, but a trans person is told, you might be crazy, so you're gonna have to wait. And like, even though you pay the same taxes and like you have the same human rights, you've got to wait 5 years. So like, you come back to us in 2 years, and then you're gonna go through therapy for a few more years, and blah blah blah. So I basically did all this hoop jumping all those years ago, 10 years ago, got all signed off by the Gender Identity Clinic, who is the NHS kind of body who mandates all the trans stuff and like gives us our hormones basically. And then I moved to this new area, and my GP, and not just my GP here, but like all the GPs, or all 6 GPs at the surgery, including like the head GP, are all just like, yeah, we're not going to do this, like we're not going to give you that. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? And they're like, no, we just don't feel comfortable giving you your hormones that you've been on for 10 years, and like that you've been told you can have by the NHS. Like, you've jumped through all the hoops, but you can't have this. We just don't agree with this, or whatever. We don't feel comfortable with this. And they were allowed to, like, they were allowed to claim like incompetence, even though it's written in a letter from the Gender Identity Clinic saying, please give Charlie Craggs this much estrogen and this much this. Literally, it's like in black and white in a sentence, like, please give her this, like on their records. But they were just able to say no. And like, hopefully that shows anyone listening like the level of we're going through right now. And that is just on like a personal level, never mind the political level of like being like a voting kind of scoring points element in the election we just had, like where it's like one of the biggest social issues right now is like, oh, what's your stance on trans issues? Like, I just hope that that's what this my answer of rambling has given anyone listening, is just to kind of show how hard it is being trans right now and being made out to be the villain when you're like the victim. There we go, that's the answer.
I think you could not have worded that any better. What
I
a
could
brilliant
probably
answer.
worded it a little bit more succinctly, but better. Yeah, no, thank you, Tom. That's very kind of you.
No, thank you, Charlie. And obviously, this podcast coincides with Trans Awareness Week, which is so important. And hopefully, off the back of what you said, it isn't used as political or as a political motive, or it's used as just to spark debate. If there was one thing you wanted to leave our listeners to mark Trans Awareness Week, just one sentence, what would it be?
Just to have a bit of compassion. That's it. Just to have a bit of compassion. I don't need to explain it. And I think anyone who has compassion won't need me to explain it.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to all the young people listening, and for hopefully being the generation that's going to save us. Because I'm
Absolutely.
easy to save us.
You've done your work. You've got your awards.
I'm old and tired. You have to do all the work now.
Exactly. Leave it to me. I'll pick up where you left off. And that is it. Thank you so much, Charlie. If people wanted to find out more about you, where do they go?
Just Charlie_Craggs on everything.
Brilliant.
And you can, I was going to say, if you know any young trans people or any trans people of any age that could do with free self-defense classes, you can go to charliesselfdefenseangels.com, and it's all free, and I'll teach you how to defend yourself.
Incredible. Thank you. And if you want to find out more about The Mix, just pop over to themix.org.uk or say hello on the socials, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Just search The Mix UK. And that's it, Charlie. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. We'll see you soon.